It was a quiet Thursday evening, the kind where the sun melts into gold over the rooftops, and the world feels slow and gentle. Clara sat on the couch, half listening to the soft hum of her favorite playlist while her old Labrador, Max, rested his head on her knee. For years this routine had been their comfort, a shared silence that needed no words. But tonight Max stirred differently. He lifted his head sharply, ears pricked, and a low whine escaped him. Clara smiled at first, thinking it was just his old bones protesting. Then he stood, rigid, and padded to the window, his tail stiff, eyes locked on the street outside. The world beyond the glass seemed ordinary, but Max refused to budge, pawing at the floor and growling softly. Clara's chest tightened. "Max, what is it?" she whispered, rising to follow him. The golden light of dusk shimmered across his fur, highlighting the tension in his posture. Her heart raced as she peered out, seeing nothing unusual, yet feeling an inexplicable chill. Minutes passed, and his insistence grew. Restless pacing, soft whimpers, a desperate gaze fixed on the same spot. Clara felt a mixture of worry and awe. This wasn't a dog being silly. It was a dog alerting her to something beyond her senses. She reached for the door, hesitant, the hair on her arms rising. That's when everything finally made sense. Before we continue, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more heart-touching dog stories. And tell me, where are you watching from? The house always felt gentlest in the early evenings. Soft light spilled across the living room floor, a warm gold that looked almost liquid as it stretched toward the old rug. Outside, the neighborhood settled into its usual quiet. Few cars, a distant lawnmower shutting off, the calm hum of a world winding down. Clara liked this hour. It made everything feel slow, safe, familiar. She sat on the edge of the couch, a mug warming her palms. Steam drifted upward, curling in the fading sunlight. And beside her, pressed close enough that she could feel the steady rise and fall of his breathing, lay Max. Her sweet old Labrador. 14 years of loyalty, and slowing legs, and gentle eyes that still sparkled like he was a puppy inside. His head rested on her knee, heavy and comforting. She stroked the soft fur between his ears, feeling the warmth of his body against her. Max gave a long, satisfied exhale, one of those deep old dog sighs that sounded like he was releasing the whole world. Everything felt peaceful. For a moment. Then Max lifted his head. Slowly, alertly, like something had brushed against a part of him she could never fully understand. His ears twitched. His eyes sharpened. And he shifted his weight off her lap with careful effort. Clara paused. "What is it, buddy?" Max didn't answer, of course. But he didn't have to. He stepped forward slowly, cautiously toward the window. His tail lowered a little. Not tucked. Just thoughtful. His nose lifted, scenting the air. Listening to something only he could hear. Clara set her mug down and straightened. A small knot formed in her chest. The kind that whispers, "Something's different." Max reached the window and stopped. He didn't bark. Didn't growl. Didn't whine. He just stood there, perfectly still, staring out, his posture tall and focused. Clara walked toward him, her footsteps quiet on the wooden floor. "What are you looking at?" Nothing seemed unusual outside. A couple walking their dachshund at the end of the block. A teen pushing a bicycle. An old mailbox leaning slightly to the right like it always had. Ordinary things. But Max didn't move. His breathing grew shallow, his ears tightening forward. Clara watched the subtle change in him. The way age seemed to fall off for a moment, replaced by instinct sharpened by a lifetime of loyalty. He gave a small whine. Just one. Soft. Barely there. But full of meaning. Clara felt something shift inside her. "Are you okay?" Max's body leaned forward, almost imperceptibly. Not to run, not to bark, just to pay attention. Deep attention. That quiet, unshakable focus only dogs have when they sense something we don't. Clara knelt beside him. Her hand hovered above his back. He was tense but not scared. Alert but gentle. Like he was trying to tell her something he didn't have the words for. A moment passed. Then another. The room felt heavier, quieter. as if the world outside had paused with Max. Clara swallowed hard. "Max talked to me," she whispered. He didn't look at her. He didn't look away from the window. He simply waited. Listen. Stillness wrapped around them, and Clara could feel her heartbeat in her throat. Max's shoulder brushed her forearm, steady, warm, grounding, and yet his focus never broke. It wasn't like him. At his age, he usually curled up on his blanket by this time, drifting off into soft old dog dreams. But tonight he stood guard. Clara leaned a little closer to the window, trying to match his line of sight, squinting at the quiet street outside. She focused on the parked cars, the sidewalk, the dimming sky. Everything looked normal, too normal. But Max's tail gave a single slow sweep across the floor. Not excited, not playful, just certain. A certainty she could feel more than understand. Her breathing deepened. Her palms warmed. Her throat tightened in a way she didn't expect. "Max, what are you sensing?" The old lap's chest expanded with a soft inhale. His gaze stayed locked. His ears didn't flick. His posture didn't loosen. His attention didn't slip for even a second. He was waiting for something. Something she couldn't see. Clara rested her palm on his back. His muscles were firm beneath the aging fur. "Okay," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm here. I'm right here." The last stretch of daylight faded behind the rooftops, turning the street into a soft blue-gray hush. Max didn't move. Not yet. Clara exhaled slowly, her breath unsteady. And in that delicate silence, with night beginning to settle and Max rooted at the window like a guardian of something unseen, Clara felt it. A shift. A presence. A truth she wasn't ready to understand. Max's ears lifted half an inch. His tail stopped. His body leaned forward just a hair. And Clara's heart followed. Because in that exact moment, something finally clicked inside her. But what Max sensed was far from ordinary. The streetlights flickered on one by one, tiny circles of pale orange blooming against the deepening blue. Evening settled fully now, the kind of quiet that wrapped the neighborhood in a gentle hush. But Max didn't move from the window. Clara stood beside him, arms folded lightly across her chest. She felt the coolness of the glass, the faint vibration of cars passing further down the block, yet nothing seemed out of place. Nothing except Max. He lifted his nose slightly, breathing in the air through the narrow cracks around the window frame. A slow inhale. A longer exhale. His whiskers twitched. His tail remained completely still. Clara watched him carefully, her eyes soft but full of concern. "Buddy, is it someone outside?" Max didn't glance at her. His focus stayed forward, not fixed on one spot but scanning, as if listening to something subtle and distant. She followed his gaze again. The street was calm. A porch light across the road blinked as a moth fluttered around it. The breeze shifted lightly, rustling the leaves of the neighbor's maple tree. Nothing unusual. And yet, Max's ears gave the smallest movement. Not a perk, not a twitch, more like acknowledgement. Like he recognized something she couldn't. Clara exhaled slowly. "You're worrying me," she murmured. Max stepped forward until his nose touched the glass. A soft tap. And then another. His breath fogged the surface for a second before fading. Clara placed her hand gently on his back. His fur felt warm beneath her palm, but his body held tension, as if his instincts were nudging him toward something meaningful, something he needed her to understand. He gave a quiet, throaty whine. Not loud, not distressed, just insistent. Clara's voice softened. "Okay, I see you. Tell me what's wrong." Max shifted his weight, the old joints moving carefully. But his eyes, still bright, still present, tracked something across the street. Clara stepped closer to the glass. The air outside seemed heavier now, thicker, carrying something she couldn't name. Her fingers brushed against the windowsill. "Is it a person?" she asked quietly. Max's tail lowered just a bit more. Not fear, not aggression. A signal of caution, of focus. The kind of signal he used to give when he heard a knock before she did. or when the mail carrier approached long before they came into view. Max had always listened with his whole body. Now he was listening harder than she'd seen in years. Clara swallowed. Okay, let me check. She walked to the front door, flicked on the porch light, and opened it halfway. The hinge creaked softly. A cool draft touched her face, brushing past her like a quiet whisper. She stared out at the street. Still nothing. A runner jogged past on the far sidewalk, earbuds in, oblivious. A bike leaned against a lamppost. A delivery truck hummed somewhere in the background, distant and unhurried. Everything looked normal. Completely normal. Clara stood there for a moment, breathing in the evening air, hoping it would somehow give her the answer Max seemed to already know. It didn't. She closed the door gently and returned to the window. Max hadn't moved. He hadn't even blinked. His focus was absolute. Clara knelt beside him. You're sure, huh? His chest rose and fell in a slow, steady rhythm. Then, he stepped back, turned to the left, walked to the other window near the corner of the living room. A purposeful walk. Soft pause. Slow but certain steps. Clara straightened. Max! He sat down at the second window and stared outside again. Same posture. Same stillness. But this time something in his body language changed. A slight forward lean. Ears angled differently. Tail barely lifted. Not high but enough to signal attention shifting. Clara felt her heartbeat quicken. Okay. What is it now? Max blinked once. Twice. Then held his gaze steady. Clara moved beside him, following his line of sight. The corner of the street. The shadows under the tall oak tree. The parked silver sedan. The row of mailboxes. And then, a figure. Barely noticeable at first. Just standing there at the far end of the sidewalk, near the curve in the road. Not walking. Not moving. Just there. Still. Motionless. Clara narrowed her eyes. Who is that? Max's ears shifted again. A tiny, subtle adjustment. Recognition. Not fear. Not threat. Something more tender. More emotional. Clara felt a small knot unravel inside her. Do you know them? She whispered. Max made a soft, breathy sound in his throat, something between a sigh and a whine. A sound she hadn't heard in a long time. A sound he used to make when her breath caught. She leaned closer to the glass, trying to see more clearly. The figure stepped forward. Just one step. The streetlight behind them cast a pale glow around their outline, enough for Clara to see something familiar in the shape. The posture. The way they held their shoulders. Her lips parted. No, she whispered. That's not, it can't be. Max stood again, slowly but with purpose. His tail wagged once. Just one warm, gentle sweep. A sweep filled with memory. A sweep filled with something Clara couldn't yet let herself believe. The figure paused, lifted a hand as if bracing against the evening air. Then let it fall gently to their side. Clara felt tears rise unexpectedly. Her voice trembled. Max, who do you think that is? Max pressed his nose to the glass. A soft breath. A warm fog. A tiny vibration of hope. The figure stepped forward again. And Clara felt her world tilt. Because suddenly, everything Max had sensed was starting to make sense. The figure at the end of the sidewalk didn't move again for several seconds. They just stood there, half lit by the dim glow of the street lamp, still as the quiet evening air. Clara felt her breath catch in her chest. Her hand rose instinctively to her collarbone, as if grounding herself. The light inside the house hummed softly, and behind her, the slow tick of the kitchen clock echoed faintly. Every sound felt amplified now. Sharper. More delicate. Max stayed at the window, steady as stone. Then, he wagged his tail again. Just once. A slow, gentle, knowing sweep. Clara's heart ached at the sight. Because Max didn't wag like that for strangers. He only wagged that way for people he loved. People he remembered. Clara leaned closer to the glass, squinting through the thin reflections of the room behind her. Her own blurred outline overlapped with the figure outside, making it harder to see clearly. She blinked, shifted her angle. lifted a hand to the glass to block the indoor light. The silhouette sharpened. A tall figure. Slight lean in the shoulders. Hands relaxed at their sides. Something about the stance, the quiet presence, stirred a memory deep inside her chest. One she didn't want to touch. One she had buried weeks ago, gently, painfully, because the truth of it hurt too much to hold. Her voice cracked softly. It can't be. Max pressed closer to the window. His nose touched the glass. His breath fogged it again. His posture softened in a way Clara hadn't seen since. She swallowed hard. No, she whispered, shaking her head. It's probably someone else. It has to be. Max didn't move. He kept watching with that unwavering, tender certainty. The figure shifted slightly. Just a small change of weight, a quiet lean forward. The motion triggered something sharp inside Clara. A memory. The way someone used to stand at the door waiting for her after long shifts. The way they used to tilt their head when listening. The way Max used to run to them first, tail high and ears perked. Clara pressed her fingers to her lips. No. They're gone. They're not. She couldn't finish the sentence. The words refused to form. A soft sound escaped Max's throat. A small yearning whine. It broke something inside her. Because Max had never accepted loss the way humans did. He never understood finality. He understood absence, waiting, hope. And for weeks he had sat at this window every evening, watching the street, listening, wanting. And tonight he was acting like the waiting was over. Max, Clara whispered. Are you sure? His tail gave another slow sweep. Clara reached for the window latch, but her fingers trembled. What if she opened the door and no one was there? What if her eyes were playing tricks on her? What if grief was bending the edges of reality? She let her hand fall to her side. Max turned his head slightly, just enough for his eyes to meet hers. Soft, deep, steady. He didn't bark. He didn't push her. He simply looked at her with an expression she had seen countless times, when she was sad, when she was afraid, when life felt too heavy. Reassurance. Max took one small step toward the door. Then another. He paused beside her. Waiting. Clara inhaled shakily. You want me to check? Max blinked once. Then he turned toward the door. Clara rose slowly. Her legs felt unsteady. She wasn't sure if it was fear or hope, or the fragile mixture of both. She placed a hand on Max's head. He leaned into it gently, his warm fur grounding her. Okay, she whispered. Okay, buddy. I'll look. The house felt too quiet as they walked toward the front door together. The floor creaked softly beneath them, and every sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant car engine, the whisper of wind outside, seemed to echo. Clara reached the door. Her hand hovered above the lock. She hesitated. Max sat beside her. Calm, patient, steady. She closed her eyes for one long breath, then opened the door slowly. Cool air brushed across her face. The porch light cast a pale glow that spilled onto the sidewalk. Her eyes adjusted gradually. Her heart pounded. The figure at the end of the sidewalk stood still. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the figure stepped forward. Clara's breath hitched. Another step. Slow, cautious, almost hesitant. The street lamp illuminated their face just enough for Clara to see. A familiar jawline, familiar posture, familiar softness in the eyes. She exhaled a shaky, stumbling breath. Oh my God! Max took one step down the porch. Another. Then he stopped, waiting for Clara's permission like he always did. Clara's voice broke. It really is you. The figure raised a hand, half wave, half reach. Their voice carried softly in the cool night air. Clara? Is that you? Max whimpered, loud this time. Raw. Overflowing. His tail began to wag, gently but with unmistakable joy. Clara felt tears spill down her cheeks. You're alive, she whispered. You're actually. Her knees weakened. She grabbed the railing. The figure stepped closer, emotion trembling in every line of their face. Yeah, they said softly. I'm home. Max couldn't hold back anymore. He trotted forward, slow because of age, but filled with a pure, trembling happiness that lit his entire body. Clara followed him, one shaking step after another, as the truth wrapped around her. Warm. Unbelievable. Heart-shattering in the gentlest way. Max had known. All along. Days before she did. And now, the reason he waited at the window was finally standing right in front of them. The night air felt different now. Not cold. Not warm. Just full swollen with something Clara hadn't felt in months. Hope. Trembling, fragile hope. Max reached the figure first. His pause slowed as he approached, like he didn't want to startle them, like he needed to be absolutely sure. His tail moved in soft, sweeping arcs. His nose lifted gently toward the familiar scent he hadn't smelled in what felt like forever. The figure knelt down. Slowly. Carefully. As if their body wasn't used to bending like that anymore. And when they did, Max pressed his head against their chest. A deep, aching sound escaped him. Not a bark. Not a cry. Just a warm, relieved breath that came from the deepest part of him. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. Her vision blurred with tears. The voice she had feared never to hear again trembled softly into the night. "Hey, old boy. I missed you." Max leaned harder into them, eyes closing, body melting into a posture of pure trust, one he reserved for very few people in his life. Clara took one more step forward. Then another. Her feet felt heavy like she was walking through water. Her chest tightened with every breath. For a moment fear flared. Fear that if she got too close, the illusion might shatter. That the person in front of her would blur, fade, disappear. But they didn't. They stayed kneeling on the sidewalk. Max's fur brushed against their hands. Their breath fogged gently in the night air. Real. Alive. Home. "Clara," they whispered. Her voice cracked. I thought you were gone." They stood slowly, using the lamppost to steady themselves. There were bandages under their jacket. A slight limp. A heaviness in the way they breathed. "I almost was," they said softly. "It was close. They didn't know if I'd make it." Clara swayed. Her knees threatened to buckle again. Max sensed it. He turned immediately and pressed against her leg, grounding her with his warmth. His old body, aching, tired, slow, still moved with a protective instinct as natural as breathing. Clara steadied herself, fingers gripping Max's fur. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why didn't they tell me you survived?" The figure swallowed hard. "They couldn't. I wasn't stable enough to be moved. And honestly, they didn't know if I'd ever recover enough to come home." A soft wind swept across the street, rustling dry leaves along the pavement. Max leaned into Clara again. His tail brushed her calf, slow, comforting, tender. The figure stepped closer. "I wanted to call," they said. "But I didn't want you to see me that way. I didn't want Max to see me that way." Clara shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You think we would have cared? You think he would have cared?" She reached out, touching their sleeve. "You didn't have to protect us from that." Max nudged the figure's hand with his nose, insisting on being touched again, as if reassuring them that none of the lost months mattered now. They crouched slightly and scratched behind Max's ears, their voice softening. "I missed you, buddy. I never stopped missing you." Max's tail thumped against the sidewalk, slow but full of emotion. Clara stepped closer. The porch light behind her cast a warm glow, illuminating the gentleness in their eyes. Those eyes had changed. They held exhaustion, pain, memories of something dark, but they were still the same eyes she used to look into every morning. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why tonight?" They looked down, then back up at her. "I don't know," they said. "Something in me, something quiet said it was time. Like I felt a pull to come home." Max's ears perked faintly. Clara blinked. "A pull?" They nodded. "I kept thinking about this street, this house, about you both waiting inside." Their voice softened further. "It felt like someone was calling me back." Max turned his head toward Clara as if saying, "I knew." Clara wiped a tear from her cheek. "You have no idea," she whispered, "how much he's been waiting for you." The figure's eyes glistened in the soft light. They knelt again, pressing their forehead gently against Max's. "Thank you," they whispered, "for not giving up on me." Max let out a slow breath. His tail moved in small, comforting arcs. Clara crouched beside them. She placed a hand on Max's back, and another gently over the figure's hand. Warm skin beneath her palm. 3 hearts. 3 breaths. 3 lives reconnecting in the quiet glow of a streetlight. A delicate moment. Soft enough to break. Strong enough to hold them all together. Clara exhaled shakily. "We should get inside," she murmured. "You need rest. And I want to hear everything. All of it." They nodded, fatigue settling into their shoulders. "Yeah," they said quietly. "I'm tired. More than I want to admit." Max stepped back, giving them space to rise. He moved slowly, stiff legs, gentle patience, walking beside them as if guiding their steps. As if he had been waiting weeks for this exact walk back to the porch. Clara followed close, her hand lightly on the figure's arm. The house glowed softly ahead of them, warm and familiar. The porch light flickered once like a tiny welcome back. Max paused at the top step, turning his head to look back at them both. And in his eyes was something Clara had never seen so clearly before. Relief. Certainty. Love. He had known. Long before she did. Long before the phone call that never came. Long before tonight. Max had felt the moment their journey home began. And now, everything he waited for was finally walking through the door. The house was quiet that night. A soft winter breeze pressed against the windows, a slow, steady rhythm like gentle knocking. The living room lamps glowed with a warm gold tone, casting long shadows across the carpet. The air felt still, almost too still. Ben sat on the couch with his laptop open, papers scattered beside him. He tried to focus on the case notes, but the words kept drifting. His mind felt heavy, foggy, the kind of tiredness that doesn't come from a long day, but from something deeper. Max lay near his feet, chin resting on his paws. His ears twitched every so often, as if they were listening to something Ben couldn't hear. Ben rubbed his forehead. "I swear my vision's been acting weird all day," he murmured. Max lifted his head. A slow rise, then still. Ben didn't notice. He kept scrolling through the files, blinking as if something in the room was too bright. He shifted forward, then back, trying to settle, trying to shake off the strange discomfort building behind his eyes. Max stood, just stood, silent, watching him carefully. Ben sighed. "Buddy, you hungry?" he asked. Max didn't move, not even a tail flick. His entire body stayed focused tight, alert. Ben frowned. "What? What is it, boy?" Max took one step forward. Slow, measured, purposeful. Then he pressed his shoulder gently against Ben's knee. Ben looked down. "Hey, what's going on?" Max leaned harder. Not pushing, not nervous, just steady grounded pressure. Like he was trying to tell him something. Ben set the laptop aside. "Okay. Now you're starting to worry me." Max walked around him in a half circle, nose brushing lightly against Ben's side. He sniffed the air. Sniffed again. His tail lowered. His ears pinned slightly back, not in fear but in concern. Ben touched his chest. A quiet ache pulsed beneath his sternum. A small throb. Then another. "Must be stress," he whispered. But he didn't sound convinced. Max stepped close and rested his head against Ben's thigh. A soft whine escaped him, barely there, more like a breath than a sound. Ben froze. He had heard that whine before. Only once. A year ago. The night before his father collapsed unexpectedly. Max had given the exact same warning, subtle, gentle, but unmistakable once you knew it. A chill rolled across Ben's arms. He placed a hand on Max's back. "Are you sensing something?" Max nudged him toward the hallway. Not forceful. Just enough pressure to guide. Ben stood slowly. His legs felt heavier than they should. Max stayed glued to his side as they moved down the hall, step by step, until they reached the bedroom. Ben sat on the edge of the bed, breathing slowly, carefully, trying to understand the strange tightness that seemed to have seeped into his chest. Max sat right in front of him, staring into his eyes, not blinking, not moving, just watching. Ben swallowed. Okay, buddy, talk to me. What do you feel? Max lifted a paw, placed it gently on Ben's knee, and held it there. A long still moment. Ben's breath hitched. He leaned forward, elbows on his thighs, palms pressed against his forehead. A soft ache spread down his left arm. Not sharp, not sudden, just wrong. Max nudged his arm with urgency now, ears forward, tail stiff, body locked in full alert mode. His breathing quickened just slightly. His stance became rigid, protective. Max, Ben whispered. Max barked once. Short, firm, direct. Ben jolted. Max never barked in the house. Not unless something was truly wrong. The ache grew. His chest tightened another inch. He exhaled shakily. Maybe I should sit down a minute. He was already sitting. He blinked hard. The room tilted for a second. Max barked again. Louder. Ben reached for the nightstand, grabbed his phone with trembling fingers. The chest pressure deepened. Ben gasped softly. Okay. I think I need to call someone. Max pressed against him again, anchoring him. He wasn't pacing or panicking. He wasn't whining. He was focused, completely focused on keeping Ben steady. His posture said everything. Stay awake. Stay present. Don't ignore this. Ben dialed Emma. She answered instantly. Hey, you okay? Ben tried to speak, but his voice cracked. I'm not sure. Max nudged his shoulder again. Ben's breathing grew uneven. Not dramatic, just wrong. Emma's voice sharpened with worry. Ben? What's happening? He closed his eyes. My chest, it's tight. And my arm feels strange. Max moved closer and rested his head on Ben's lap, keeping pressure, grounding him. Emma didn't hesitate. Ben, listen to me. Stay where you are. I'm calling paramedics right now. Ben opened his mouth to argue, to downplay it, but Max barked again. Loud. Direct. Emma heard it. That was Max, wasn't it? Yeah. He knows. Ben, he knows. Stay awake, okay? Ben nodded slowly, even though she couldn't see him. Yeah. I'm trying. Max leaned into him harder, keeping him upright. The world felt dimmer around the edges. Ben swallowed, fighting to stay focused. You think it's serious? Emma's voice softened. It doesn't matter what I think. Max is acting like he did with your dad. That's serious enough. Ben exhaled. A shaky, uneven breath. Max climbed onto the bed beside him, something he rarely did without permission, and pressed his body against Ben's side, keeping him stable. Ben whispered, Good boy, stay with me. Max rested his head on Ben's shoulder, and didn't move. Minutes stretched into slow, heavy silence. Outside, the distant sound of approaching sirens grew louder. Max didn't look away from Ben. Not once. Even as Ben's breathing grew shallow, even as the ache deepened, even as the room seemed to blur around the edges, Max stayed exactly where he was, grounding him, protecting him, refusing to let him slip. Ben whispered, voice barely there. Thank you, buddy. Max closed his eyes for a brief moment. A soft exhale. A promise held quietly in the dark. He would not leave Ben's side. Not tonight. Not until help arrived. And not for a moment after. The paramedics reached the house in under 6 minutes. But to Ben it felt like an hour. He stayed seated on the edge of the bed, fingers curled tightly around the phone, breathing in slow, uneven waves. Max remained pressed against him, shoulder to shoulder, keeping him upright each time his balance wavered. The sirens faded outside. Then, a knock. Firm. Urgent. Paramedics. Ben tried to answer. Max beat him to it. A single bark, sharp, commanding, as if guiding them inside. Footsteps rushed through the hallway. 2 paramedics appeared in the doorway, flashlights slicing through the dim bedroom light. One knelt in front of Ben immediately. Sir, can you hear me? Ben nodded weakly. Max didn't move. Not even an inch. The second paramedic's gaze shifted to the dog. He's protective. Just keep him calm. Max didn't growl, didn't bark, didn't panic. He simply watched intensely like he was tracking every move. The first paramedic placed 2 fingers on Ben's wrist. His brow tightened. Heart rate is irregular. Ben swallowed. His chest throbbed deeper now, a slow bloom of pressure pushing outward. The paramedic lifted a small portable monitor. Max, buddy, I need a little space, he said gently. Max didn't move. He pressed even closer to Ben. Ben whispered, breath thin. Hey, Max, let them do it. Max's ears flicked at Ben's voice. He stepped back. Just once. Enough space for the monitor pads. Enough trust for help. Ben offered a tired smile. Good boy. The monitor beeped to life. A fast, uneven rhythm. The paramedic's tone softened with seriousness. Sir, we need to get you to the hospital. Now. Ben closed his eyes. A quiet wave of fear rolled through him. Not panic. Just the fear of losing control. He whispered, Is it bad? We're not taking any chances, the medic replied. Max did the right thing getting you attention. Ben let out a trembling breath. Max leaned in again, resting his chin on Ben's leg. A soft whine escaped him. The paramedic lifted an oxygen mask. Okay, big guy, he murmured to Max. I'm putting this on him, nothing to worry about. Max watched, head low, tail still, ears slightly back. Concern. Not fear. Not aggression. Just deep focus worry. The mask settled over Ben's nose and mouth. Cool oxygen flowed. Ben inhaled shakily. The room steadied a little. Emma's voice came through the phone again. The call was still connected. Ben? I'm driving behind the ambulance. Stay awake. Max is with you, right? Ben nodded weakly. Yeah. He's right here. Max pressed closer. Emma's voice softened. Good. Just keep breathing, okay? You're not alone. The paramedics helped Ben onto the stretcher. His legs shook slightly as they lowered him down. Max moved instantly, pacing beside them step for step, never crossing their path, never interfering, just staying close, watching every hand that touched Ben, every strap they fastened, every movement. His instincts were sharp, focused, grounded. The medics noticed. One of them bent down and stroked Max's head gently. You're a smart one, huh? You knew something was wrong. Max didn't look away from Ben. Not even for a second. They wheeled him toward the front door. Max followed. When they lifted the stretcher into the ambulance, Max hopped forward, front paws on the bumper, ready to climb in. Ben reached out weakly. Hey, I'm okay. I'm okay, boy. Max held his gaze. For a long, quiet, aching moment. The medic spoke softly, kneeling beside him. He can't ride with us, buddy. But someone's coming. You'll see him at the hospital. Max didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't accept it. He stayed on the bumper, paws pressed against the metal, refusing to leave. Ben's voice broke slightly behind the mask. Max, stay with Emma, okay? She'll bring you. Max looked at him, chest rising slowly, eyes wide, wet with tension. The medic gently lifted Max's paws down, inch by inch, guiding him off the bumper. Easy, easy, that's it. Max's body trembled once. Just once. He let them close the doors. The ambulance pulled away into the night. Max stayed frozen in the driveway, chest puffed, tail low, ears forward, eyes fixed on the red lights vanishing down the street. Emma's car screeched to a stop seconds later. She ran out breathless. Max! I'm here. I'm here. Max finally broke his stillness. He rushed to her, not frantically but with a desperate kind of purpose, and pressed his head into her stomach. Emma held him tight. Oh, sweetheart, we'll go together. I promise. Max pushed away immediately and looked at the ambulance's fading lights. Then at the car. Then at the lights. Choosing. Deciding. Emma opened the back door. Come on, Max. Let's go get him. Max leaped in without hesitation. Emma slid into the driver's seat, breath shaky, hands trembling as she gripped the wheel. Max stood the entire ride. Not sitting, not lying down, standing tall, head tilted toward the window, as if tracking the ambulance ahead even though it was already gone. The car moved through the dark streets. Streetlights streaked across the glass in long golden lines. Emma spoke softly, glancing at him in the mirror. "He's strong. He's going to be okay. You did the right thing, Max." Max blinked slowly, then looked back out the window, watching the night blur past, waiting for the moment he would see Ben again. Not with fear, not with panic, just unwavering, quiet loyalty. A kind of loyalty that didn't break, didn't bend, didn't falter. Even at the edge of night, the hospital smelled like antiseptic and warm air. A mix of machines, footsteps, and hurried whispers echoing through long white halls. Emma pushed through the sliding doors with Max close at her side. He walked in slowly, head low, ears forward, tail held straight behind him. Focused, searching, certain. The fluorescent lights reflected off the polished floors in long pale ribbons. Each reflection flickered across Max's fur as he padded forward, nails tapping softly. Emma placed a hand over her heart to steady herself. "Come on, Max. Let's find him." Max didn't wait for her to lead. He walked ahead but not far, always checking that she was still there, glancing back with anxious eyes. They approached the reception desk. A nurse turned toward them with a professional smile, then softened her expression at the sight of Max. "Oh, sweetheart. Are you with the man from the ambulance?" Emma nodded. "Yes. Ben Walker. They brought him in a few minutes ago." The nurse tapped quickly on her computer. Max stood perfectly still, watching her hands, chest rising slowly. "Okay," the nurse said gently. "He's in observation for now. We'll let you know when you can see him." Emma swallowed. "And Max? Can he stay with me?" The nurse's face warmed. "Well, technically, no pets on the floor." She glanced down at Max, the old dog with deep human worry shining through his eyes. "But therapy animals are allowed." She held out a small tag. "Tonight, he's a therapy animal." Emma exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Max lifted his head, sensing the change. "Permission granted." The nurse gestured toward the waiting area. "Take a seat. I'll check on his status." Emma thanked her quietly, then walked with Max to a small seating corner near a window overlooking the dark city. Streetlights shimmered like tiny stars along the roads. Cars drifted by, slowed by the late hour. Emma sat. Max did not. He stood facing the hallway Ben had disappeared into, muscles taut, breathing steady, eyes locked. "Waiting." Emma whispered. "You don't want to sit?" Max didn't move, so she let him be. Minutes passed. Softly at first, then heavier, thicker, stretched by worry. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. A rolling cart. A distant intercom alert. A monitor beeping somewhere behind the walls. Max's ears twitched at every sound. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't restless. He was listening, trying to find Ben in the noise. Emma watched him quietly, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "You really love him, don't you?" Max blinked slowly, then lifted his head higher. A quiet, wordless yes. Another nurse approached. "Miss? They're still running tests. It may be a while." Emma nodded, but her eyes drifted to Max. He didn't break posture, didn't turn his head, didn't take a breath out of rhythm. He was waiting for something. Not a sound, not a voice, not even Ben's scent drifting through the hallway. He was waiting for the moment his instinct would tell him. "He needs me again." Emma leaned back in her chair. The waiting room was almost empty now. A father holding a sleeping child. A woman whispering into her phone. A doctor rubbing tired eyes as he pushed through another chart. Life pulsed softly in every corner. Max didn't move. After 15 minutes, Emma gently touched his back. "You can rest, sweetheart, he's safe. They're taking care of him." Max lowered his head a fraction. Not in agreement. Impatience. He took one slow step forward, then another, and sat directly in front of the hallway entrance. Facing the corridor like a doorway he refused to let out of his sight. Emma watched him. The old dog's silhouette glowed under the overhead lights. Graying muzzle, soft whiskers, a body that had slowed with age, but a spirit that hadn't faded at all. A spirit anchored to one person. Emma felt her throat tighten. She whispered, "You were right. You were right from the beginning." Max's ear flicked back toward her voice, but his eyes never left the hallway. More time passed, minutes sliding into one another. The city outside dimmed deeper. The waiting room grew quieter. Max remained still. Emma stood, walked over, and sat beside him on the floor. He leaned gently against her shoulder. Not fully, just enough to let her know she wasn't alone either. She whispered into his fur. "He'll want to see you first, you know." Max blinked, then slowly finally laid his chin on his paws. Not asleep, not even relaxed, just saving his strength. The hallway lights hummed, soft and steady, like a calm heartbeat. Emma closed her eyes for a moment and breathed in the moment. The quiet, the tension, the fragile hope holding the air together. Her voice was barely a breath. "Max, can you feel him? Is that why you're waiting like this?" Max didn't move, but something in his posture softened. A subtle easing of tension, like a message passed through instinct alone. Emma wiped a tear with her sleeve. A doctor stepped into the hallway at that exact moment. Clipboard under his arm, eyes scanning the waiting area. Max lifted his head, ears up, tail still. Emma held her breath. The doctor approached slowly. "Family of Ben Walker?" Emma's heart stumbled. Max stood, every muscle awake, every instinct rising, strong and old and certain. The doctor offered a gentle smile, tired but warm. "He's stable." Emma gasped, a soft, choked relief. But Max simply exhaled, a long, deep release, like the world finally aligned with what he already knew. The doctor continued, "He's asking for you." Emma pressed her hand to her chest. "And Max?" The doctor smiled wider. "He asked for Max first." Max took a single step forward, ready, steady, waiting for the door to open and bring him back to the person he had stayed awake for, watched for, listened for, and believed in all night. The door to Ben's room opened with a quiet click. Emma stepped aside, letting Max go first. He moved forward slowly, not from hesitation but from something deeper, a kind of reverence, a kind of understanding. The lights inside the room were dim, glowing softly across white blankets and pale walls. Machines hummed in gentle rhythms. A monitor pulsed in steady beats, a calm, reassuring sound. Ben lay propped up on the hospital bed. His face was tired, pale, softened by the long hours behind him. But his eyes lit up the moment he saw Max. "Hey, buddy," his voice cracked. Max froze for a second at the threshold. Then, without breaking the stillness of the room, he walked to the bed. Not rushed, not frantic, not dramatic, just steady, like he'd been carrying this moment inside him, waiting. Ben reached out a trembling hand. Max pressed his muzzle into it, and everything, the fear, the waiting, the worry, melted between the two of them, like a tide finally settling back into shore. Ben exhaled a long, shuddering breath. "Thank you, Max. You saved me." Max lifted his head and rested it gently on Ben's chest. A soft whine escaped him, the kind that carried love rather than fear. Emma stood near the door, arms folded tightly against her stomach, watching them, letting the moment breathe. Ben stroked Max's ears slowly, tenderly. "I knew you were trying to tell me something. I just didn't want to believe it." Max's eyes closed halfway. "Not from sleep, from relief," Ben whispered. "You never stopped watching out for me, even when I wasn't watching myself." Max's tail swept the blanket once. A slow, warm arc. Emma stepped closer. "Your doctor said your numbers are stabilizing. They'll keep you overnight, but you're okay, Ben." Ben nodded weakly. "That's because of him." He looked down at Max again, and something changed in his expression. A soft realization, a settling truth, a deep, quiet understanding. I thought he was just doing his old window routine. You know, the same spot he always sat in when he waited for me back when I worked nights. Emma nodded. He used to sit there every evening, like he was timing something. Ben swallowed. He wasn't waiting for something. His fingers trailed down Max's fur with a gentleness almost reverent. He was watching over someone. Max's ears twitched at the words. Emma felt her throat tighten. Ben continued, I didn't want to believe something was wrong. I kept brushing it off. And he kept trying every night to get me to understand. Max laid his head back down on Ben's chest, right over his heartbeat like he needed to feel it to believe it. Ben looked at Emma. He knew before I did. He felt it. Emma whispered. Dogs sense things, especially with the people they love. Ben wiped the corner of his eye with the back of his hand. He must have known for weeks. The room sank into a soft quiet, a quiet that felt safe, healing. Max curled his front paws under the blanket, his body pressed against the bed. His breathing slowed, evened out. Ben rested a hand on Max's head. You can rest now. I'm here. Max's eyes closed fully, not from exhaustion, from peace. Emma took a seat in the corner chair. Ben looked at her with a tired smile. You stayed for him? Emma smiled back. For both of you. Outside the window, the first hint of dawn touched the horizon, a thin golden line breaking the edge of night. Ben stared at it quietly. You know that window at home? He always sat there like he was waiting for someone to come home. Emma nodded. Maybe he wasn't waiting for someone to come home. Ben turned toward Max. Yeah. His voice softened, barely above a whisper. Maybe he was waiting for a moment. The moment he would finally be needed. Max shifted slightly at the sound of Ben's voice. Not waking, just responding. Ben ran his fingers along the old dog's back, feeling the warmth, the softness, the years of devotion woven into every breath Max took. You did good, boy. A long silence settled, the kind that doesn't hollow a room but fills it. Emma leaned her head back against the wall. The sun rose slowly, pushing gentle light through the glass, turning the hospital room gold. Max opened his eyes halfway. Ben smiled. Morning, buddy. Max blinked, then lifted himself carefully, placed one paw onto the edge of Ben's chest, and leaned his weight forward, resting his head once more near Ben's heartbeat. Ben closed his eyes, letting the warmth settle over him, letting the truth of everything, the window routine, the strange behavior, the unspoken warnings, the loyalty, fall into perfect clarity. Emma stood and walked to the bed quietly. She placed her hand over Max's back. You too. You're something special, Ben whispered. He's been looking out for me his whole life. Max's tail gave a soft thump. Ben added, voice breaking slightly. And tonight it finally made sense. The three of them stayed like that, under the growing light of a new morning, wrapped in a small room full of warmth, breath, and unspoken promises. And for the first time in a long while, Max rested, truly rested, because the person he'd been watching over so faithfully was safe. And the sun rose gently around them, the way a new chapter begins, quietly, patiently, full of hope.